We saw it on WBZ News. Mike Kennealy, former member of the Baker administration, announcing he will run for governor in 2026, challenging the incumbent, Governor Maura Healey. He's kind enough to stop by the WBZ News studios right now to talk about it and his decision. Mike, thanks for being here.
Chris, thanks so much. Great to be here.
Yeah, first question's the easiest, maybe the most complex.
Yeah.
Why are you running?
Well, Chris, I love Massachusetts. I love public service, and I'm running to serve the people of Massachusetts. I think we have some urgent priorities right now in our state. We need a state that everybody can afford. We need a great future for everyone, and we need government we can believe in. I think the current establishment of Beacon Hill has fallen short on all those three things. So I'm excited to get my message out there and talk about how we're going to advance the interests of the people of Massachusetts.
All right, some tentpole platform issues that you're going to be running on.
We're going to be relentless on that. And those I think, are the critical issues facing our state. And for me personally, I want to bring my experience to this job. I spent 19 years in business, traveling the country, meeting with entrepreneurs, investing in companies, helping them grow. I decided a dozen years ago what I really wanted to do was serve the people of Massachusetts. So I've been in public service full-time for a dozen years now. Yeah. 2 years on the turnaround of the Lawrence Public Schools, 8 years in state government, 4 years as the cabinet secretary. The last 2 years doing some great nonprofit work at Boys and Girls Clubs of Boston. So what I hope to bring is my experience in business, education, state government, local government, by the way, as a volunteer in the nonprofit sector to help address these urgent needs and priorities.
Yeah, the CV is there, the experience is there, surely, and people know you across the Commonwealth. What do you feel the current administration is not doing enough of, and what are the specific issues that you want to bring to the table?
Well, look, on the first point about affordability, I mean, we've become a state where some people truly cannot afford to live here. Yeah. And I look at a few different aspects of cost of living: housing cost, energy cost, and taxes. Now, in housing, we've been in a housing crisis for a long time in Massachusetts. And in the Baker administration, we were unabashed talking about that we have to produce a lot more housing. However, it's got to be housing in partnership with our cities and towns to help them deliver the housing they need. I think the relationship with municipalities with respect to housing has been far too adversarial in the Healey administration. So we have to get back to a serious production-oriented strategy in collaboration with our cities and towns. On energy costs, I don't see any real focus on trying to bring down the cost of energy. I feel like the governor has a climate policy, not an energy policy, and the climate agenda is driving energy costs higher. So there's a reliance on solar and wind and imported hydropower. The governor's bragged about shutting down natural gas pipelines. We need more supply of energy in the state and a dedicated strategy to bringing costs down, not gimmicks like a one-time $50 rebate. On taxes, the proposals for new taxes simply has to stop. The governor's proposed taxes on candy and prescription drugs and reducing charitable deductions and giving municipalities the ability to raise taxes at the local level. That has to stop. So the cost of living things, the things I hear about from people all around the state, those are real issues. Yeah. And in some respects, Beacon Hill is not addressing them. In some respects, they're making them worse.
Thankfully for sweet tooths everywhere, the candy tax isn't going anywhere anytime
there
soon.
you go. Okay.
Let's go back to your first point about housing, though, because you were part of the grander architecture of the MBTA communities law. And it's designed to have communities that abut the MBTA lines, zoned for more housing. Sounds good, but there's been blowback on that.
I want to clarify my role in that and the Baker administration's role in it. So let me say, for years, we campaigned to get something done called housing choice, which is very important zoning reform. And all that did was make it easier to rezone properties at the local level to get more housing done. It had been state law for a long time that rezoning is required a supermajority, 2/3 vote. And we said, let's make that a simple majority vote so cities and towns have an easier path to develop the housing they want. Now, in that same bill came MBTA communities. It wasn't our idea, not our proposal. But when it landed with us, we said, okay, let's try to make this as flexible as possible for cities and towns to comply with it. That was our objective. It was not meant to be a punishment for cities and towns, but another tool in their toolbox. And I think it's unfortunate the way the dialogue has evolved on that one. The vast majority of communities that have had to comply have. Yeah. But I do think there's been a real effort around threatening and mandating and suing cities and towns versus taking a relentlessly collaborative approach, which is what we took.
Well, if these communities say they will not comply, what other mechanisms are left?
You know, I don't know, Chris, but look, this is brand new stuff. Yeah. This law has been in the books for a few years. It is brand new stuff. And I think, you have to listen and learn and find out what's happening on the ground. Yeah. And I think the approach has been to double down on the mandate versus getting out there and hearing their real concerns. Yeah.
This is a state, going to your second tentpole, about energy costs
Yep.
that has been receptive to green energy, solar, and zeroing that out.
Yeah.
How do you bring the message to voters
Yeah.
that you want to lower costs without drill, baby, drill?
It's a great point. Look, I mean, natural gas has been a key part of the energy portfolio, and it should be, right? I think there has to be a bit of an all of the above strategy here. But I think you have to start with the premise that, yes, we're trying to address green energy and the climate, but we need to address cost of living as well. And I think it's a question of balance. I don't see anybody in the Healy administration dedicated now to bringing down the cost of energy. There's a lot of focus on an energy transition, if you will, but there's got to be a dual focus. You have to be able to focus on two things at the same time, green energy and cost. And by the way, over the course of time, I think the key here is going to be our innovation economy and new forms of energy that are in their infancy now that are likely to develop going forward. We literally have a company here in Massachusetts working on fusion technology. And so we have to embrace new technologies and new approaches. Yes.
You don't think that's happened?
Not to the degree it should. I think the focus is much more on issues now and policies now that drive up the cost of energy.
Yeah.
If you're a consumer now struggling with utility costs, okay, and you've got solar panel charges on your bill and other charges, you're starting to see that. So yes, I think people embrace clean energy, provided that it's clean. I think when wind turbines wash up on beaches, that's not clean energy.
Sure.
Right? But I think people also are very concerned about the cost of living, as they should be. And people are voting with their feet. People are leaving Massachusetts over these issues. Yeah,
100%. While the city itself, Boston, continues to see residents, there is a net egress from the state. Yeah. I want to go macrocosmic here, because everyone wants to attach either themselves or their opposition to the president. And right now, our mayor, Michelle Wu, is it's almost like she's campaigning for re-election against President Trump. How do you, if the governor tries to attach you to the president, is that something you'll try to avoid or something you'll try to embrace?
Chris, I'm going to be out here every day for the next year and a half, listening to the people in Massachusetts, their needs, their aspirations, and developing policies to address them. And that is it. My priority is the people of the state and serving the people of the state. And yes, I'm sure there'll be some attempt to label me or try to associate me with some other politician. We're going to totally resist labels in this campaign.
Yeah.
And we're not here to either further or oppose the agenda of any other politician. We're here to serve the people of Massachusetts.
Yeah, I mean, that'll be a tough task, given the political climate nationally.
We are full steam ahead, listening, learning, collaborating, developing ideas to serve the people, and that's what we're doing from day one till the final day. That's it.
Obviously, Governor Baker was immensely popular in his time at the State House.
That's right.
And yet, in the current climate, when I had a chance to talk to him, he said, it doesn't feel like there's room for moderates anymore. What do you make of that statement?
I think there's always room for leaders that want to listen, collaborate, build their teams, and get things done in service of the people of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
And there's a real demand for that right now.
Yeah.
As there should be.
Do you see anything the governor has done that is, if not praiseworthy, positive?
Governor Healy?
Yeah.
I think we made some good progress on transportation. That's probably one thing.
Yeah.
Right. Look, I mean, that's probably the first thing I point to.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Phil Lang came aboard, no nonsense, and just said, we've got to clean up the tea.
I think he's doing a good job.
He's largely,
I think he's doing a good job.
Yeah, fantastic. I want to go to Lawrence Schools.
Yeah.
You talked about that.
Yeah.
What was the big learn there? What did you take away from that?
Oh, my God. I could go on all morning about that one. I left a 19-year career in private equity to embark on this new career in public service, and Lawrence was my first stop. It was an amazing experience. I think that the key learnings out of that one are, one, the importance of collaboration.
Sure.
And the receiver, Jeff Riley, opened the doors of the school system for all kinds of community partners. And so we partnered with the business community, nonprofits, many others. And it was just a great example of people rallying to a cause and collaborating. And a great example of leadership. Another learning is around the effects of cutting the bureaucracy and putting more money in the classroom. We reduced the size of the bureaucracy by about 40%, put the dollars right in the classroom, innovated some of our programs, and over time, a high school graduation rate went from 52% to 72%. So it was a wonderful 2-year experience. I learned a lot, met a lot of great people, but I'd say the importance of leadership, collaboration, again, listening. I'm going to say listening all campaign long here.
Sure.
Being willing to innovate, and always in this case, keeping the end goal first. In that role, the goal was the kids.
Yeah.
How do we make sure the kids have the best education they can have, the best future they can have? And when you start with the end goal in mind and build your team, and you're willing to listen and collaborate, you can get great things done.
Yeah. The governorship has been one that Massachusetts voters have been open to voting for both parties.
Yeah.
Unlike some congressional districts where it's a blue state through and through, right. Some of the races are one-person races.
Yeah.
So how do you, over this next year and a half, get the message out when a lot of the issues you want to tackle, our current governor Healy says she's in the middle of tackling right now? How do you parse that out?
Well, that's a good question. I think you just have to point to the record. I mean, yes, the governor talks about affordability, but I made my points about affordability and housing, energy, and taxes, where she's fallen short. You know, in taxes, we have to stop proposing new taxes. I think I said that already, but I think, you got to look at the record on that one. She would claim she's addressing education and building the workforce of the future. We're falling short on that one. We've got to talk about that one. We have the governor and her administration talk about the fact that we remain #1 on national assessments. That's true.
Yeah.
But our scores in reading peaked in 2011. Our scores in math peaked in 2013. Now, we're like the sports team that wins their division every year by losing fewer and fewer games. So question, are we leading because we're getting better? Or are we leading because the competition's getting worse? That's a real question.
Sure, yeah.
And we should not settle for declining performance regardless of how good it looks relative to others. So the other one I want to point out, the third part of our outlook here, our strategy, is government we can believe in. Yeah. And that one, look, it has to be said, the voters, 72% of the voters gave the auditor the right to audit the state legislature. 72%, okay? And Beacon Hill is pushing back on that as hard as they possibly can. And I don't see the governor backing up the auditor on that one. That's an issue of transparency and accountability. The governor promised to have the most transparent governor's office in history and have her office be subject to the public records laws. That hasn't happened. So government you can believe in starts with transparency and accountability and listening to the voters and giving them the information they want. And we're falling short on that one for sure.
Confident you'll get a fair shake in the next year and a half through the public and get your message out?
I'm confident we are not going to be outworked. We're going to work relentlessly to listen and learn and get the message out. And yeah, I am confident. You know why? Yeah. Because ultimately this is a pragmatic state.
Yeah.
Right?
It really is.
And people want solutions. They want people to speak to their needs, to listen to them, and come up with real solutions. Yeah. And that's what we're going to do.
Yeah. Fantastic. Mike, thanks so much for joining
Great
us.
To see you.
Best
Thank
of luck,
you, Chris.
and I'm sure our paths will cross again. Mike Kennealy.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, running for governor.
There we go. Thanks. All right.